Why do we run away from challenges rather than running to them? Well, that's because of how big we perceive the challenge to be. Far too often, we underestimate our capabilities and overvalue our preconceived notions about giants that immediately count us out of the fight. But I want you to know that all giants are not always what they appear to be. On today's episode, I will share with you why adversity we face in life isn't always what it seems. Despite how small we may feel when we're going through it, God can still deliver our giants into our hands. Let's talk about it now.
What's up, y'all? As DJ Khaled would say, and another one. You are now listening to episode 4 of the Sincerely Deedy podcast. Now, if you've been rocking with me since the start, you know who I am, and I appreciate you so much for showing up for me. But if this is your first time listening in, I am Deedy, your host, and the friend in faith that you didn't even know you needed. I am happy you are tuning in today, but don't be a stranger. Keep coming back every Tuesday each week so that we can continue to connect and grow together. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Google, pretty much any of your preferred platforms. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Of course, I am on Instagram and Facebook, so follow your girl there as well. So, since you are my friend in faith, let me tell you about y'all nephew. So, while all the kids are on social media flexing in their new uniforms, he is still on break. We are on the East Coast, so they don't go back to school until the end of August. It actually used to be right after Labor Day, but the school board changed things this year, moved that schedule up, and guess what? I am so happy. I am not gonna lie, I love him, but it's time for him to go back to school. But while he's on break, his game of choice is the MetaQuest 2 virtual reality headset. And so the other day he comes running up the stairs to tell me about this game that he's been playing. And in this game, there's like this monster-like creature that he has to compete against. And he's been scared because, it's big, it's tall, it's scary. And he just never thought that it was something that he can actually beat. But the other day, he actually fought against the monster and he beat him. And it wasn't as hard as he thought it was. So when he told me that story, I'm like, he don't even realize he didn't drop the little gem of wisdom in his mama lap that I actually needed it right in that moment at that time. And that was that adversity isn't always what it seems. What we identify as giants in our lives aren't really as big as they are, even when they feel that they're bigger than they really are. Of course, when my son, when he shared his little success story, I thought about David and Goliath in the Bible. And so if you don't know what that story is about, basically David um, had defeated this 9 foot plus giant Goliath, who everyone was afraid of, who everyone thought couldn't be defeated. And he defeated him with a slingshot. And so if you want to read more about it, go to 1 Samuel chapter 17 to get the full story and just full context. But if you go back one chapter more in chapter 16, you'll hear about Samuel anointing David as as the next king of Israel. And this was after God had rejected the first king, Saul. And so he had rejected Saul because of his disobedience. So at this point, God was searching for a man after his own heart. He wasn't looking for anybody else that was going to be disobedient. So when he sent Samuel out, he sent him with instructions about where to go, what to do, but he did not indicate that it was David that he was anointing at that time. So Samuel just assumed that this new king was going to look like his predecessor, Saul, someone tall, strong, someone who looked the part of the king. But the Lord had told Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, because he doesn't look at things that people look at. People look at outward appearances, but the Lord looks at the heart. So as you can see, appearances can be deceiving because things may not be what they initially appear to be. We have to be cautious about how we classify challenges in our lives. We can't always take things for face value because we can be influenced by our own cognitive biases, such as the confirmation bias, where we are led to have this selective attention and interpretation of information that supports preconceived notions. So those preconceived notions can be things like how big or how hard something is to do or overcome. And sometimes we come up with those things before we've actually even experienced it. We count ourselves out too soon. We count ourselves out before we even get a leg in the fight. So we as people, when we are faced with adversity, we aren't really wired to challenge our negative thought patterns. We don't go into it like, I got this. We don't have that mindset. We don't go into it like I can overcome this, especially when we have already perceived it as a giant. And a giant can be many things. It can be us telling ourselves, oh, that's too much money. I can't afford it. I can't go to that school. I can't get in that program. Or we have this thing that, okay, that business, that industry, it's saturated with so many good people. I know my gifts are best served there, but it's no way I can be successful. Or people at the job, they have more years than me. Their credentials are better. So I am certain that there's no room at that leadership table for me. We count ourselves out. But listen, David was not the strongest. He was not the tallest of his seven brothers. Some would even say that he wasn't the most qualified to be the next king of Israel because he was too young. But none of that mattered. None of that mattered to God. God saw his heart. His heart was the reason he was chosen to become the next king. And so when David had decided to confront that giant Goliath, he led with faith. As Sarah Jakes Roberts would say, he had confidence. He had confidence in God. He knew that God was going to be the source of his accomplishment when he killed Goliath, not his own warrior strength, but God. So when we face challenges and adversity, y'all, I get it. It's tough. I'm not about to sit here and act like it's easy breezy. That's a reality. It's hard. Our situations can be very dire. They can appear bigger than what we can handle. Yes, they can feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But it's important for us to remember that we are capable of more than we think. Yes, we are. You are more capable than what you think. So the next time you are challenged or faced with adversity, do not automatically count yourself out. Don't do that. Okay. Count yourself in. Find ways to make it manageable while you're going through it. Okay. Keyword through it, meaning you aren't stuck there. It's temporary. If it's a task, break it down into smaller pieces. Find ways to avoid feeling overwhelmed and making it bigger than what it is, making it a bigger feat. If it's leadership, find, someone who have maybe a diverse perspective or who feedback, who may have been in that position, who may have similar experiences and can explain to you or share with you what they did to get where they are. If that means additional training, be willing to go and complete that training if that's going to help you get closer to where you want to be. If it's a saturated business industry, but you know that your gifts are best served there, then try to find a niche. What is something that everyone is doing that you can do a little bit differently and still add their value? Be creative, be curious, be open-minded, be willing to look beyond the surface, because remember, it may not always be what it seems. When we are fighting giants, our progress is not going to be linear. We're going to have mistakes and setbacks, and that's a natural part of the process. But we can learn to improve our approach to our defense strategy. But at the end of the day, the battle was never ours in the first place. It was never meant to fight because our battles are the Lord's. We place our trust in Him, and if we allow Him to fight for us, He will strike down our giants. He will. He will deliver them right into our hands. Now, my friend, I must remind you how fearfully and how wonderfully made you are for God, by God, for a greater purpose. You are His greatest workmanship. When He formed you in your mother's womb, He had already placed that quality stamp over your life. So when you step foot into the world, He knew that people would be able to identify you as His, and that you have value and that you have worth. So remember, own that, believe that, and don't let anyone tell you anything different. Okay? I appreciate you. I love you. And I am officially signing off. Sincerely, Deedy.
Thank you for growing with me today. To stay connected, follow Sincerely Deedy on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to this podcast and YouTube so you can get first dibs on when new episodes drop. Want more? Join my growth and development community to get access to resources, upcoming events, product and service offerings, exclusive updates, and more. Visit the homepage of our website, www.sincerelydeedy.com, and visit the section Grow Where Your Feet Are Planted.